This is Mark Hubbs with Arrows Gone Bullet Molds. Today we're going to do something different. We've got a short video I'd like to show you of shooting flintlock rifles. Now I know that's a little bit different from my normal percussion era videos, but we're going to go back a generation or two and shoot some flints. I used to build flint rifles. 20 years ago I built several from parts and pre-carved stocks. Still have one of them. But recently I've got my hands on a Dixie Gunworks Tennessee rifle. It's a very authentic out-of-the-box rifle for the early 1800s period. I have a special interest in this because I'm a relative of the Bean family who developed this particular style of rifle. But January 8th was the anniversary of the Battle of New Orleans. And so what better day to go out to Guntersville, Alabama with the Raccoon Mountain Longrifles, which is an affiliate group of the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, and shoot some flintlock rifles. Let's go to the range. I was invited to the range owned by Bill Milliken, and here he is in the center. His son Trey is on the left side, and my good friend Steve Sheldon's there on the right holding his Brown Bess. Bill owns a very nice little range near Guntersville, Alabama. I took my 50 caliber Dixie Gunworks Tennessee rifle to shoot, but you won't see it in the video. I just could not get it to fire properly. Hang fires, failures to fire, and so forth. I finally realized it was a problem with the vent liner, which I've since corrected. Essentially became a spectator for the day, but that was a lot of fun too. Bill has a very nice little range with a shed, shooting tables, and out to about 100 yards or more with a big hill mass as a backstop. You really can't ask for anything better as far as a nice secluded place to go shoot safely. Bill and Trey are both competition shooters with the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, and they both have hand-built 40 caliber long rifles, well-tuned and very accurate weapons. I learned a lot from them that short time, that afternoon. Now look at Treys Rifle here. You can see the pieces of PVC that are used as sight hoods. You have to keep in mind that the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association, although they use historic weapons, they're not a living history organization. Their intent is accuracy with old technology, and they take some modern shortcuts as far as loading and some of the accessories they use. Steve was the odd man out. He brought two different smooth bores to work up loads. This is his Pedersoli Brown Bess. I followed Trey through the loading process for his 40 caliber rifle. Here he's measuring his powder. This is about 50 grains, and he measures it in a brass measure, as you're probably familiar with, and pours it into the muzzle. Next step is to take his patching material, which is cotton duck. This is a very thin canvas, and he sprays it with a product called Mr. Flintlock. And this is a wet lube, not really designed for field use. It's more for target use, shooting off a bench. It takes a .395 round ball and places it on the muzzle. You have to have an extremely tight ball and patch combination to get the required accuracy. He takes a short starter and a mallet and actually hammers this into the bore of the gun. And at that point, he can take his patch knife and cut off just the required amount of cotton fabric to leave a patch around the ball in the muzzle. Next, he'll take another short starter, this one longer than the last one, with a bore guide, and he will insert it down about the first 6 inches of the gun. And next, this was a surprise to me. He actually cleans the bore of the gun between shots as he loads the rifle. So he's already got the ball inserted. Next, he'll put a cleaning patch on his cleaning rod, or range rod if you want to call it that, inserts it on top of the bullet, and then in one motion rams the ball home and swabs fouling out of the bore from the previous shot. He turned the patch over and swabbed it again for good measure. Now he's ready to go to the firing line and prime the weapon and then fire. He uses a small brass flask that has a spring-loaded plunger for priming. He'll use the smallest amount of powder possible to get good ignition. Too much powder is actually worse than not enough. He'll shut the frizzen, set the trigger, go to full cock, and you shoot at 100 yards here. It's consistently staying within a 6-inch bull at 100 yards, shooting offhand, many of them in the center of that bullseye. Here it is in slow motion. Trey's dad, Bill, turned 81 years old just a couple of days after this shoot. And his hand is steadier and his eye is keener than mine has ever been. And he proved it shooting that day out on the range. This is just a fun slow motion cutaway to show you the difference between the lock time on a rifle and a military musket. I've synchronized them so they both ignite at the same time, but you'll notice that the musket's hammer began to fall much sooner than the rifle, illustrating that the musket is about half the speed of a good rifle in ignition. I appreciate Bill and Trey letting me shoot with them that day, and I hope I can go out and join them again sometime. Although I didn't get to shoot my Dixie rifle because of ignition problems, which now I've fixed, I did have reignited in my interest in flint rifles. So I recently ordered a Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle kit. Should be in a couple of months. When it does, I'll share that with you. And eventually, when I get it all put together, we'll go to the range and shoot it too. So I'm glad you joined us. I hope you'll come back and see us again sometime.